one from StreamYard. Alrighty. Alrighty, let's punch it. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tabnine Office Hours. Oh, I think, Chris, your video might have froze. Okay, you're back. Thank God.
There we go. Nothing like a little worry here. It's 7 a.m. We'll do some intros here first. I'll start off. I'm Chris Good. I'm a product marketing manager here at Tabnine, and this morning I'm joined by Amaya.
Hey everybody, my name is Amaya Deshmukh. I'm the head of marketing programs at Tabnine, and we'll be telling you pretty much everything you need to know about us today and showing it to you as well.
Oh yeah. So we're going to be covering a lot here today. So here's what you can expect to learn in this session. All right. We'll start off by going over how to maintain complete privacy over your code and data, how to have complete protection from IP issues and legal liability, how to improve the performance of your AI code assistant. We'll talk about model flexibility. We'll go over the AI agents for every step of the SDLC, and we'll also talk about the 4 levels of optimization that allows Tabnine to perform like an engineer on your team. Then we'll work our way through a live demo of an application build, right? Going from Jira issues all the way through code review. And then we'll end on a live Q&A. So let's go over some baseline stats first to really understand the impact AI code assistants are delivering, right? AI code assistants like Tabnine have proven to have a significant impact on developer productivity, engineering velocity, and employee satisfaction. And here's just a few statistics that we can share from independent studies, right? AI reduces developer task time by up to 30% for code refactoring, 45% for code generation, and 50% for documentation. Task completion by developers went up as much as 15% for medium complexity tasks and 30% for high complexity tasks. Developers reported being happier in their work, went up from 45% without AI to 88% with AI, with a similar 2x increase and the ability to focus on more meaningful work. And one independent survey actually of IT pros estimated that they could save more than 5 hours per week using AI to complete repetitive tasks. And that equates to roughly, I think, like 15,000 worth of time per IT worker annually. And based on our measures, that is a very, very low estimate of the value actually delivered. So with all of this, it's no surprise that one survey even reported that 78% of companies expect to use generative AI for software development in the next 3 to 5 years. So the benefits to engineering teams are proving to be abundantly clear.
Yeah, so, what's kind of unique about Tabnine is you're going to see your SDLC significantly accelerate when you deploy and start working with us. And simultaneously with the controls we've put on to the AI agents, along with the fact that everything that you do is always human in the loop, you're going to get a speed increase in delivering and shipping new features, and also simultaneously lift your code quality, your code compliance, and the performance of your code as well, as we'll show you with our customizable code review agent that's completely unique to your organization's standards. And the reason we built that's one of our newest releases, actually. The reason we built the code review agent is that our customers are finding that they're shipping code into the pull request and shipping it over to their code reviewers so fast and at such a higher volume that if code review wasn't already a bottleneck at their organization, which I'm sure it is at many of yours, it became even a bigger one with the use of AI. And what's really unique about our code review agent is that it's completely customized to your organization's unique coding standards, policies, practices, and furthermore, it's completely human in the loop. So everything it suggests and it asks and recommends in terms of edits and fixes, it's reviewed by your code reviewer, and your code reviewer can even ask it to make modifications to the changes that it's suggesting directly in the pull request. So net, it's an end-to-end AI supported and assisted SDLC that we can offer you today. But onwards to the next slide.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about, let's talk about what Tabnine is, right? Tabnine boosts code quality and developer happiness by automating the coding workflow through AI tools. So Tabnine helps development teams of every size use AI to accelerate and simplify the software development process without sacrificing any privacy and security. So Tabnine boosts engineering velocity, code quality, and developer happiness, right? By automating this coding workflow through AI tools customized to your team. So three big pieces I want to draw attention here to, right? We've pioneered generative AI for software development, and we are the originator of the AI code assistant category, launching our first product in 2018. And that was just the first of firsts for us. I'm sure we'll get into this later in the conversation, but that's been a repeated pattern with us, right? Being sort of the leaders in innovation and launching the first, Jira agent or the first code review agent. It's been a repeated pattern. Tabnine is also used. Secondly, Tabnine's used by over 1 million developers across thousands of companies in very, very highly regulated industries. And then the last piece is that Tabnine also works with more than 600 languages and frameworks and supports all of the most popular IDEs. So when it, we'll meet you where you're comfortable. We're not going to ask you to change your ways. Whether it's your, Visual Studio, VS Code, anywhere in the JetBrains family, and any language or framework that you can probably think of that you work with. It's probably in that one of 600, right? So we'll meet you where you're comfortable. We're not going to have you change any of your ways.
Yeah, so no matter what IDE you're using to code or what languages you're writing in, you're covered with Tabnine. We can support you. And we've also been recognized by leading analyst firms, so Everest Group, OMDIA, and Gartner as well. Pretty proud to actually announce that in the 2024 Critical Capabilities for AI Code Assistance, Tabnine was ranked first and ranked second for all 5 use cases. So we ranked first for code generation, code debugging, and code explanation. And then we ranked second for code modernization and artifact building and testing. What's important to note here is Gartner actually evaluated us against all 12 vendors in the space, including GitHub Copilot, and we outperformed all of them on pretty much every single measure. So when you're choosing Tabnine, you're really getting an enterprise-grade AI solution that's trusted and in use by companies in highly regulated and security-conscious industries. So we're talking aerospace, defense, government, fintech, financial services, healthcare. There's some larger retailers using us as well, which you might be able to see if you go look at my LinkedIn profile. So really, in addition to being the originator of the category, we've also been the market leader in terms of delivering innovative capabilities in this space faster than anyone else, and we do it better than anyone else as well. We're the first to launch local code awareness, code-based connection, first to do on-prem deployments as well, first to offer complete model flexibility. And then we're also the first to build a code review agent, a Jira agent, as well as a full set of AI agents for every step in the software development lifecycle, all the way from onboarding onto a project to generating test cases and test plans, documentation, finding and fixing errors in code. And as you continue to follow us over the next year, you're going to see Tabnine is going to continue to integrate into more and more of your dev tool stack, pull context from that, and improve the personalization of our coding recommendations. But before we get into all that, why don't I let Chris tell you just a quick overview of how we support the entire SDLC here.
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about what Tabnine is. Let's gain some more clarity on what exactly an AI code assistant is, right? So an AI code assistant is an agent that lives alongside you as you move throughout the software development process. It's powered by generative AI infrastructure, and it's fully aware of your project and your code base. AI code assistants can take plain language prompts and use that to explain code, generate code, refactor, fix code, answer general coding questions, or even help coach you along on a specific language or frameworks, as well as autonomously generate documentation and tests and those sort of not fun things. But the capability of these AI assistants continue to grow, right? Taking on more and more of the software development process and becoming more accurate and more autonomous in their work. So think of an AI code assistant as a deeply experienced, highly trained software developer sitting alongside you to help you be more successful with your everyday tasks. And then when it comes to IDE support, just want to touch on this again. Tabnine supports your favorite IDE, and we'll meet you where you're comfortable, right? So from the Visual Studio Code, or VS Code, Visual Studio, Eclipse, the entire JetBrains family, we've got you covered. And same goes for our libraries, languages, and frameworks as well. Like I said earlier, roughly 600 languages and frameworks are currently supported with an ever-growing list. So really reinforcing that stance of we're not going to make you change your ways. We'll meet you where you're comfortable, where you're working. And
maybe one day we'll be able to find a way to fit all 600 of them on a slide so we can show you guys.
In a nice way. That's an awesome problem for a designer, right? How are you going to fit 600 logos on one slide? So unlike other coding assistants, Tabnine is this AI code assistant that you control, and there's three big sort of pillars here I want to hit home on. One is it's private, right? You choose where and how to deploy Tabnine to maximize control over your intellectual property. And you can rest easy knowing that Tabnine never stores or shares any of your company's code. The second piece is that it's personalized. Tabnine delivers this optimized experience for each development team. It's context aware and can be tuned to recommend based on your standards. You can also create bespoke models trained on your code base. And then the last piece here is it's protected, right? Tabnine's built with enterprise-grade security and compliance at its core, right? And we offer both indemnification and models trained exclusively on open source code with permissive licenses to avoid any risk of IP liabilities. And in regard to indemnification, by nature, using Tabnine's models doesn't expose you to the risk of intellectual property infringement, but we do support Tabnine enterprise customers with the added protection of indemnification.
So the first thing anyone always wants to know when they're in a highly regulated industry is, can I run this privately and deploy privately? And the answer is yes, you certainly can. So Tabnine can be deployed on-premise, air-gapped. It's entirely self-hosted, self-contained. So no data ever leaves your own infrastructure. We also support VPC deployments as well. If neither of those options are something you want to go with, Tabnine also offers a SaaS deployment. And some of the ways that we protect your data privacy with our SaaS deployment is that we, one, never store or retain your data. We don't share that data. We also meet proven enterprise-grade security standards. That includes ISO 9001, SOC 2 compliance, all your favorite European data regulations we're compliant with as well. And finally, your code always remains your own. So all the personalization and agentic enhancements we do for your Tabnine AI remain private to your instance of Tabnine. Your code is never used to train our general models. So there is absolutely zero risk of IP liability from exposing your organization's competitive advantage, which is your code and your software, to our AI agents. So you get all the benefits of highly personalized AI without any risk of that ending up in a AI agent that your competitors are also using as well, which is always a good thing to take care of. Now, something important to note here is, let's say your CISO or your legal team has some pretty serious concerns around IP liability from injecting an unlicensed code into your repositories, right? Someone else's code in your code. The way we solve for that is we've created our own proprietary models, which you can use if this is a roadblocker for you to roll out AI at your organization. So those are the Tabnine protected models. There's two of them. There's a code completions model and a chat model. What's unique about our Tabnine protected models is that, as Chris mentioned, they are exclusively trained on licensed code, so open source licensed code with permissive licensing. Furthermore, if you visit our trust center and just fill that out, we'll actually share all of the licenses and the code that we use to train our protected model. So if you want to look through that yourself, you're totally welcome to. And then, of course, we do offer added protection through indemnification for Tabnine enterprise customers. So Tabnine's totally private. You can deploy it however you like. And it can run completely self-contained on your own stack and infrastructure, which is a really, really strong benefit for highly regulated industries here. So before we go on a bit further, I wanted to just share with you how we internally think about driving the performance of an AI code assistant in Tabnine. And this is something you should think about as you're evaluating vendors in the space. So there's three legs to performance drivers. The first is the underlying LLM or LLMs or even SLMs that you're going to use to power your chat agents. The second is looking for a provider that's going to create AI agents. And the reason you want these AI agents is you don't want your developers writing 100-word prompts into ChatGPT or having to have super long conversations with your coding assistant in order to get the type of response that you need. So AI agents really eliminate or completely really reduce the need for any prompt engineering work. And finally, what you want to look for is a provider that has sophisticated retrieval augmented generation indexing and modeling done on the application level. And that is really what we excel at Tabnine. Our RAG is, probably shouldn't say this so braggadociously, but our RAG is seriously the best in the industry. And what's interesting to note about this is earlier this year, we started offering model flexibility. And that means you can swap out the underlying LLM powering our chat agents in real time. You can choose any third-party LLM you like. If you've got your own, you can use that as well. But when we swapped out GPT 3.5 for 4.0, we saw about 5 to 10% lift in code acceptance rates. And what code acceptance rates are is a metric you see inside the admin dashboard in Tabnine. And what that tells you is developer queried Tabnine, and did they insert the code recommendation that it came up with? So when we upgraded the model for GPT, we saw a 5 to 10% lift in code acceptance there. When we turned on our first level of personalization, which is local context awareness of your IDE workspace, that generated a 40% increase in code acceptance rates. And that's just one of the 4 levels of personalization that we offer through our RAG. So really net, what you're going to see is with Tabnine, you get code that you can actually use and implement that fits your project, your code base, your workflows, and the task at hand. And that is really what ultimately is going to drive the performance of an AI. Because if you've been following the LLM space recently, you might have seen that there's been a slew of third-party research that's come out. And what they're forecasting is that by about 2026, the LLM providers will have exhausted all of the publicly available training data that exists in order to improve their performance. So, given also that all these LLM providers are training on the same data sets, these LLMs are going to run into a bit of a hard wall here in terms of creating performance lifts from making the model making the model bigger alone. And that's really why we're focused on increasing and optimizing our retrieval augmented generation to feed the right context from what you're working on into the model, because that's really what's going to drive the performance of your AI coding assistant today.
So one quick thing I wanted to touch on when it comes to RAG, because I think that some folks might know it, some folks might not, and some folks might be a little confused because it can be complex. So the metaphor analogy that I used earlier this week was playing with Lego blocks, right? You have two types of blocks. You have Lego instruction booklets, and these are like the retrieval of RAG, right? Where you find information from a book or your brain, like a library or a database, to use in your project. The second piece is sort of like Lego creations, and that's like the generation of RAG, right? Where you use these pieces, you have the info you've retrieved to build something new, like a spaceship or a castle if you're building Legos, or a fun CLI program if you're coding. So RAG stands for retrieval augmented generation. And it's like combining those two steps together, right? So the retrieval, AI goes to find helpful instructions or facts from a database. And then the generation, AI uses those facts to build a new answer or solution for you. So for me, that's a helpful way to sort of understand how RAG works together.
Yeah, so it's almost like if you compare and contrast it to AI building Lego for you without having a booklet. It's kind of just going to jumble some things together, or it might just kind of guess that, oh, it looks like you're trying to build a castle, and here's a castle from my open source library. But what you really want is you want the AI to look at, okay, how did you guys build a castle previously in your Lego Lego repository or your IDE workspace or your organization standards? And what we do is we go and build that Lego template using our RAG model, and then we guide the AI to build the castle according to your templates. It's kind of just a simple way of understanding something that's really sophisticated and complicated. So it's a great metaphor Chris has come up with. Hope you guys enjoyed that. So before I go any further, so with Tabnine, you get complete model flexibility, right? So if you're deploying us on premise, the way it works is if you have different LLM models that your organization's already approved and you've got them running on your infrastructure, we can just connect those in using an API call to Tabnine, and you can make those available to your organization. You can also select the set of models that you want to be made available to users and teams on Tabnine. And you might want to make some decisions around that based on what sort of work those people are doing and what model is most performant for that. What we've seen in our own internal data is that Claude 3.5 Sonnet is by and far the most performant LLM for software development. So that's the one we recommend going with always. And then if you're running us on VPC, you can also plug in your own model. So if you're going in through Amazon Bedrock, Claude 3.5 is right there. And really any other virtual private cloud provider that you're using, if you're running models in that cloud, you can connect those into Tabnine as well. Should you go for a SaaS deployment, you don't need to go out and get your own API key for the models. We just give you access to all of them included in the enterprise offering. So really the only place where having your own API key becomes important for these models is if you want to self-host Tabnine and have it run completely self-contained in your architecture. And finally, of course, we know a lot of our customers are working on their own LLMs and small language models internally. And as you guys develop and build those, you can even connect those into Tabnine and leverage all of our agentic and personalization and RAG capabilities on top of your own homegrown LLMs or SLMs. So really, it's completely flexible to how you want to use and deploy AI at your company. So in addition to the model, the next leg is your AI agents, right? So here we're the only AI coding assistant that's built a full set of AI agents for every task in the SDLC. What's missing from this slide is our Jira agents. Those kind of come in between plan and create. But as Chris will show you in the demo, we'll show you how to use every single one of these AI agents. But really, it's an end-to-end solution, right? So coming all the way from onboarding onto a project or exploring a code base to creating code using our code completions or natural language queries or using our Jira implementation and validation agents. We have a full test case and test generation agent as well. That's really powerful for updating all your testing, and will save you a ton of time there. Of course, we can help you find and fix errors in your code, create documentation, explain code. And then in maintenance, Tabnine is super powerful here as well. So you can use our agents to change code, add functionality, get ideas to improve your project and your code. You can even do some refactoring, and Chris has built a pretty cool custom command that he'll show you. I think it's called Refactor Wizard. That's pretty powerful there. And then finally, as you're getting into code review, our code review agent acts directly in the pull request, and it's going to read that code like a fully onboarded member of your team. It's completely customized to your organization's unique policies and standards. You can set rules for any language, for any use case, any outcome you're trying to achieve. It's going to go and read that code like a human being, flag deviations, and suggest fixes. And all of our agents are human in the loop. So you're going to get the recommended change from Tabnine. You can ask Tabnine to modify it to your desire if needed, or if you like what it's generated, you can also just click another button and apply it directly to your code. And it works the same way across the full SDLC. So going on to our custom commands. Of course, we have our set of AI agents, but what you can also do is create some custom commands and agents, if you will, to execute additional things. So Steve will show you some of these, but some of the fun things you can do here are like monitoring, managing, and updating project dependencies is a use case that's pretty powerful. You can automate refactoring tasks like renaming variables, extracting mythos, and reorganizing your files. Of course, you can combine our existing AI agents if you wanted to fix and document in a single button click. You can do that by setting that up. And you can also point these custom commands at code and non-code sources of information to leverage additional context using our RAG. So really powerful, really customizable workflows that we give you here for using Tabnine. And on to our bread and butter here, which is personalization. So Tabnine uses 4 levels of personalization today. The first is local IDE context awareness. That looks at about 14 different data points in your workspace. You turn that on with a simple toggle button called Workspace Indexing On. As soon as you turn that on, Tabnine is going to look at those 14 data points, and those include things like all imported packages and libraries, open files. You can point it at unopened files using @mentions. It looks at your cursor. It looks at what you've been code completing. It looks at your chat history. It looks at what AI agent you're using. You can also connect Tabnine into your global repositories. So we support GitLab, GitHub, and Atlassian Bitbucket repos. Setting up that integration is really, really easy. It's a couple of button clicks in the admin panel and an SSH key, and you're good to go. The third level is coaching. This is where you can provide Tabnine with direct guidance on how to respond to different developer requests and actions. Our first release here in the coaching pillar is, of course, our code review agent. And then finally, something we also offer is customization and model fine-tuning. So we can take about, like, if you have 3 million lines of code, And then we can fine tune a custom Tabnine protected code completions model based on your company's own code that's completely private to you. This level of customizations really only offered to our self-hosted customers because you have to run it on your own instance. And where it really becomes meaningful is if you've got like some great repositories that you just want your developers to be able to repurpose and utilize artifacts from. That code completions fine tuning is really going to blow you away. But as you'll see in this slide, the optimization is progressive. So each layer builds on top of the next one, and our RAG model looks at all of these together holistically. And it's really designed to give the AI and the LLM the right level of context at the right time for the task at hand. So that's how we do it here. And that 40% lift in code acceptance rates you're going to see from context alone, but you'll see that number continue to climb as you do more and more personalization. So it'll climb even more with connection and coaching. And then the pinnacle is, of course, reached at customization and model fine tuning. Alrighty, let's hop on over to our demo. We're going to show you all of our AI agents. We're going to do a full application build here live. Chris will kick it off by just kind of explaining the Tabnine UI as a starting point to orient you. And then we'll go on over to the Jira agent to kick things off and roll through there.
Alrighty, thank you. Let's see here. Cool. All right. We can all see this. Sweet. So let's start off, as Maya said, with going over how we're going to interact with Tabnine, right? We'll go over the Tabnine UI that folks will be interacting with and each of the agents that you'll find along the way and the different form factors where they live. So I'm in VS Code right now. That's my IDE of choice. You'll see the Tabnine logo once it's installed here on the left-hand side. So upon clicking that opens up the Tabnine AI chat. And you'll see starting at the bottom, there is a query bar. This is where you can use natural language prompts, everyday conversational language, right? To type in prompts, queries, to get answers, generate code, fix code, so on and so forth. You also see these agent buttons here, these buttons that are representative of agents, right? We've built these agents to do more of the heavy lifting for end users to reduce prompt engineering, right? So exploring codebase, for example, is one we're going to be using here shortly, but it's great for onboarding into new projects, right? It'll tell you the key dependencies, project structure, and all this other great information, as well as prompt you with some additional questions. Next, we will see at the top left, you're going to find the switchable models modal here, right? So this is where you're able to, on the fly, go in and switch between whichever model that you prefer. And in my case, I'm a big Claude fan, so we're going to keep that there. But then here's also, just to touch here, this is the workspace indexing, right? So when Amaya talked about toggling that on or off, toggling this on allows Tabnine chat to consider your project, current file, packages, etc. as context for chat responses. So it's a very quick toggle on and off. So to the right of this, well, staying within the AI chat, if you click on this beaker icon next to chat, this is where you're going to be able to generate comprehensive test plans for your code. And we'll get into that here later on in the demo. To the right of that, you'll find settings, and there's a lot of good stuff here. This is where you can define, general system behavior, right? So if you wanted to, let's say, have your AI chat respond in German, or respond in Spanish, or respond as a mentor, or a marrying of multiples of those, right? That's where you can define that. This is also where you can choose your response length, right? So if you're a more seasoned developer, a veteran, you might choose for something that's more concise. If you're someone who's more junior or you're learning a new language, you might choose for a comprehensive response length to give you more information. Now, we talked about custom commands, and this is where they live. So we'll get into showing how some of these fun ones work. But it's very simple, right? For anything that you're finding yourself repeatedly typing in or prompting the AI chat, you can create a custom command. And it's as simple as adding in a name, adding in a description, and then adding in some sort of prompt template, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you could see that button there, share with your team. So if you're building custom commands that you're finding really useful, you just toggle that checkmark on, and you can share each custom command with your team and make it available to all your other engineers so they can make use of the innovations that you're coming up with for working with AI.
Absolutely, yeah. It's super easy. When you do share something, it gets thrown into a new part of Tabnine called Tabnine commands, and it's just a new file that goes in with your source code that folks can easily, once loaded in, it comes with all of your custom commands that are specific to this project. But anywho, let me go back here. So okay. Also, Jira. This is where you can connect to Jira. Is hidden here at the bottom. I'm already connected, so you will see a disconnect here and a connected here. But it is about 30 seconds and 2 clicks. One here within the IDE, and another one that actually within Jira to approve that integration. But very easy and very painless. So that's the AI chat. The second place that you're going to see Tabnine is as you type, right? So let me go here. So it's going to be the Tabnine code completions, right? Which is funny. That's sort of what we started out as. As you're typing here, you can see anything in gray here is Tabnine auto completions, right? And as you're typing, so as you're typing in the IDE, Tabnine will autocomplete in the gray, obviously not in the dropdown. That's specific to the IDE. But what it's doing is it's automatically recognizing your intent, right? So if in this case you're writing more rules, more useful info, it'll suggest a completion there. In this case, it's maybe thinking you already have 15 rules. You don't need another one. Let's end this password security tips. But if you're doing tests or documentation or generating code, it'll recognize that intent and suggest completions based on that.
This is also where the fine-tuned code completions model becomes really useful. So if you're typing something out, it'll go look at that fine-tuned model, and it'll weight the stuff that's in your code base that we've trained the model on already and pull that into the auto completions. And then Chris has just shown a single line completion here, but Tabnine does multi-line completions as well.
Trying to think if there's a good example of one. Let me see if I add another case here. That might be a case 5. Whoops. Well, let's see. Oh, it had it. Yeah, there we go. We're starting to get there. It might not be the best example, but you get the sense that it can do not just one line, but it can also do bigger blocks as well. And then the last piece, well, not the last piece, but the next piece you're going to find Tabnine is, you'll notice probably as I've been scrolling, there's this Tabnine block at the top of each block of code. And what this is the Tabnine code lens. So it is, you'll notice a lot of similarities between some of the agents that you'll find in Tabnine will be displayed here. You can edit, test, explain, document, or ask questions on this specific block of code. Or any block of code for that matter, right? You just have to navigate to this code lens at the top of each block. The last place you'll find Tabnine before we get started here, let me move down here, is the quick commands. And what you can do on a Mac is do Command I to initialize that, and it'll pop up this drop down. So you can use natural language here, whether you have highlighted code, or it'll automatically apply this to the block that you're in. But you can reference these quick commands here if you just want to stay more in the flow, right, without having to navigate to the chat. You can do this all with key commands and just using your arrows. But another way to explain code, explore code, you can change your model here as well, and also reference code snippets. So really powerful, pretty cool. So we've covered the chat, we've covered the code lens, we've covered inline actions, or quick commands, and code completions. Let's go through, we'll start going through a usual cycle for a software developer, right? So we'll go through each phase of the SDLC, and we're going to start with plan, right? So for this first stage, I think it's incredibly important for a developer to gain an understanding of the project, what the application does, etc. So we're going to be using the Explore code base, or the Tabnine Explorer, or Code Explorer agent, excuse me. So the Code Explorer agent is this quick, built-in quick action that Tabnine chat users can invoke when starting a conversation, or an empty slate, right? You'll be able to see here that it's not accessible, that button's disappeared, right? So to access that again, you have to start a new conversation. But what Tabnine chat then returns is this high-level summary of the project's key elements, including runnable scripts, project structure, key dependencies, so on and so forth. In addition to this, it also prompts follow-up questions about the summary, allowing the developer to dive further into relevant information for their current task, right? So you have, using Tabnine chat, users can onboard into a new project much faster, while reducing their load on experienced colleagues who will spend less time helping the new teammates onboard and less time, not developing something really cool, right?
Yeah, and what you're going to see is if you're hiring new engineers, the time it takes for them to become useful to your team is going to significantly accelerate with this, because they're really just going to be able to shorten the time from getting onto a project to understanding what's going on and then going on and executing their tasks.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at the large open source project, and if it doesn't, even with a README, they can often be confusing, right? Any large project doesn't have to be open source, but they can often be confusing, especially if it's older code. It's been a lot of companies might have something that hasn't changed in a handful of years, 10, sometimes 15. So it can be really hard for a new developer who's coming into the team to gain a full understanding in a efficient amount of time, right? We're not asking someone, sure, if you gave someone a year, they could do it. But we're talking about being able to understand a huge project regardless of size, in minutes or seconds rather than hours. So let's see here. We know that this is a password generator project here. It's a, whoops, shouldn't have scrolled on this. It's bugging out a little bit. There we go. There we go. Back to business as usual. So we know that this is a password CLI, whoops, program. Let me do something real quick here. think I might have just broke it by trying to scroll too hard. Okay. There we go. Okay. Back to business as usual. Okay. So we know that this is a passwords generator CLI program. And we know what is, oops. There we go. And we know what's in each file and how it ties together. So let's continue on with the next phase of the SDLC, which is going to be create, right? So earlier in the session, we briefly talked about our Jira agents, and there's two, right? We have our implementation and our validation agents. And if you remember earlier, we are connected already into Jira. However, again, it takes only 2 clicks if you haven't done it yet, so don't worry about that. So what we'll do is we'll go over to my Jira queue. Excuse me, and this is just a sample board here we have for my marketing demo tickets here. And I'm able to see what's in my queue today, right? So, okay, we have about 6 to-dos, some of which are a little old. That's an important note that Tabnine will only is going to show the tickets that are been modified within the last 30 days, right? So we see this is my queue here. I'm going to go back into Tabnine. We'll prompt Jira. And now here are the ones that are the most recent, the ones that have been added within the last 30 days, right? So we're going to add a new useful tips, and we're going to say implement this.
And what's interesting about this is as soon as you integrate Tabnine with Jira, what each of your engineers are going to see in the UIs Chris just showed is a list of tickets that have been assigned to them. So each engineer will just see the ticket or issue rather that's assigned to them. And as you can see, it's a simple button click and typing in implement. Tabnine's now reading the local context, the code base context, and it's going back into the Jira ticket itself to look at a user story and a set of requirements or acceptance criteria. And it's just going to generate the code. And from there, you click another button to apply. And what's really cool about this apply feature is Tabnine's looking at your file that you have open and just putting the code where it's supposed to be. So you see in the Jira implementation that it did that it retained all 16 of the previous rules and then added on 2 new ones that were asked for in the Jira ticket. So when Chris clicked apply, it didn't swap out all the code. It just added in what's new where it's supposed to go. And then it becomes human in the loop there, as you saw, where Chris has to click accept the change before it applies to the actual file, which is really important. And the other thing that's cool to note here is, in addition to generating the code up top, it explained what it did. So it's continuously keeping your developer informed of what it's actually doing, which is really important because you don't want to just accept AI generated code blindly without understanding what it's doing first. And we've taken care of that for you.
So it's also one other thing I want to add. While it applies automatically on the page regardless of cursor, you can also be on a completely different file. It can give you a list of changes that are applicable across a handful of files. And once you approve and you've read through the suggestion, it is truly as simple as going through the chat and clicking apply, 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 well, apply, accept, apply, accept. But it's really takes away the pain of having to make, batch changes, which can be a huge pain if you know. So let's go back into the Jira agent. So we've added these 2 new ones based on a ticket, and then what we can do here, we've implemented. Let's do the inverse. Let's validate. Or I guess not the inverse, but let's it's the next step, right? So we'll say validate this ticket.
So now Tabnine's going back and looking at the acceptance criteria in the ticket. And look at that. It's already been implemented. So it's telling us that. And it's telling us that it has followed the 4 implementation validation criteria, and it's given us some additional things to double check on, as well as suggesting a testing case that we should set up to make sure it's displaying properly. And then what you also see at the bottom is references. So this is telling you where in your code it has focused the RAG index on to look at these changes. If you wanted to go in and just kind of examine that in more detail yourself, you could just click onto those and that'll navigate you to the selected code that it's referenced. So pretty neat feature. Then Chris, if you want to pop open Jira again and then just show the actual ticket that it looked at.
Yeah, so I understand everyone's not like me. I'm very rigorous on my descriptions and my acceptance criteria, right? So I sometimes have specific code. I also have ones, for example, this is a good one. Here's a basic description of what I'm trying to do. And here is my acceptance criteria, right? So it can be very, very simple. Also, let's say that this isn't your strong suit, right? You know what you want to do, but describing it and creating proper acceptance criteria might not be where you shine, right? And that's totally okay. We'll get into this later in the demo. I'll show it, but you can use Tabnine to create these descriptions, right? So not only can you use Tabnine to maintain and create new features that you can create tickets for, but then you can take it a step further and you can ask Tabnine to actually create this description for you and include acceptance criteria, and it'll do it in a big batch for as many features as you are planning on putting into your project, right? But this is just my example of it, but you can see it's not more than 8 lines of text.
Cool. Chris, do you want to actually do that next, so we can just round out the Jira agent component, then we'll move on to documentation testing and all the other goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just say, give me 5 ideas to improve, security in the password generator. Okay, so this is the flow that I went through for some of these, right? So what it'll do is, okay, we'll implement entropy-based password strength measurement, dictionary check, password scaling, and hashing. Okay, so the follow-up question for me on this is create a description and acceptance criteria for each of the we'll do each of the recs above for new features. Sweet. Okay, so you'll take this information, or what I've done is, or what I do is I take this, I get suggestions of new features or upgrades. I can then ask this follow-up question, right? Create a description or acceptance criteria for the recs for this new feature. And then it'll generate me this. I mean, heck, we can take this a step further, and you could even create a custom command that creates a description. We'll do Jira ticket creator, create ticket descriptions for Jira features. Cool. And now, anytime I have this question again, I can just go in here and prompt using a custom command to create me the acceptance criteria and descriptions for any features moving forward. And just to to show how that works, if I were to say, generate 3 ideas for improving user experience in the password generator, it's going to provide me another 3 here. Oh, geez, look at that. See, this is cool. This is also a good example of context. Tabnine knows that I originally asked for these. It then logs that I've asked for description and acceptance criteria when I'm asking for new features. So when I prompt it to ask me again for new features, it's just going to cut through that extra prompt in general, or that extra question that I'll have to ask, and it automatically is now giving me not just the code snippet, not this, but the acceptance criteria and the description and the name of the feature as well. I didn't even have to actually use that new custom command right now because Tabnine recognized that intent, which that's pretty cool. So I'm trying to think, is there anything else you want me to cover on this one topic here?
No, I think that's good. I think the only thing that's missing right now from Tabnine is being able to actually just do another button click and then push that into Jira as a ticket and assign it to someone. So that'd be pretty cool if we build that someday. But this is a pretty great way to project manage and really just speed up every part of your planning phase and building phase of your SDLC. So why don't we move on into the other steps here?
Yeah.
With documentation, fixing, and testing, etc.
Yeah. So let's see here. We'll move on to fix, right? So we have some new functionality we've created in here. We've added some more code, but I can see that there are some errors in here, right? So what you can do is you can ask Tabnine, where are the errors in this case, I know it's in my generator.java file, so we can reference that. We'll say generator.java. Line 18, line 19. And there's some stuff that can be simplified, but we don't care about that as much right now. Okay. All right. So here is this is a silly mistake, but what we can do is we can ask Tabnine to fix it from this code lens up top, accept the change, boom, everything is done. And there's no more errors in my code. So we can keep on moving through, just breeze past any fixes or errors. No more trying to find like a needle in a haystack. I used to always think of when I first started programming, sort of this metaphor of bug fixing, where if you turn one light, you flip one switch off, another one, 3 turn on, and it's sort of this fix of this balance of fixing, something else breaks, fix that, something else breaks. This makes it so incredibly easy to track down and problem solve any errors or issues within your code base. So we've now fixed code. We've used the code lens. We're going to move over to the testing agent. So this is where you're able to generate comprehensive testing plans. And you can access this through the test beaker. You could access this through the code lens. Heck, you can even access this, not there, geez, excuse me, in the chat as well. You can create tests for code. But for this demo, we're going to be doing it out of the sort of test agent window. So what we can do here is you can highlight code and create these create comprehensive test plans around them, right? So what we'll do is, let me see here. We are already in, we'll do password. Okay. So we're going to click that generate test plan for code button. It's going to prompt us to highlight text, right? So let's go here. We'll highlight this whole file. Now, if you did have a file, you could browse and from this drop down up top here, In this case, I don't have one for this password file. So we are going to click, I don't have a test file. It's going to create a new one in this location, and we'll hit continue. Now, what it's going to do now is notice the test agent is generating this comprehensive plan here with detailed test cases for functions, methods, so on and so forth. And it's going to automatically start us with sort of a template here. But then we can just go through and pick and choose the ones that we find most relevant to what we're doing. So let's hit insert. We'll click, we'll go for this one as well. I might be missing some imports at the top here. So also, let's say that, this test was 50% of the way that you liked it, right? You can easily modify your test here within this query bar, right? So should return a very strong visualization with a password score of 6. Let's say change the score to 5. Cool. And we can insert that. And there we go. Now again, if we have a lot of red here, we can ask Tabnine, hey, what are all of the errors in this password test.java? And I assume it's some imports here, but it'll tell us. Yeah, class structure. Fix these errors, ensure that unit 5. Okay, so boom, there you go, apply. And everything's done. There's no more red there, and we have nothing to worry about. Now you can test and make sure everything's working correctly. So that's huge. Again, no more problem solving, trying to figure out what that sea of red was, where, going back to your POM file, managing your dependencies, it is a one click, which is really, really, really powerful. So
Yeah,
we just, oh, go ahead.
If you already had a test file and you pointed a Tabnine at that, what it's going to do, it's going to read that test file and it's going to read the code that you've highlighted as well. And then it'll look for test cases that aren't covered yet in your test file. It'll look for updates that need to be made to that existing test file based on the changes you've just made in your code. So it's super context aware like that. So as you're writing tests in an enterprise development environment, these can get pretty complicated, and this is really going to streamline this part of your workflow. And if you're offshoring your testing to external third parties, there's a pretty high chance you're going to be able to bring that back in-house and save some money there. So that's pretty great. All right, let's roll on over to documentation next.
Yep. So we've created all of these new tests, but let's say someone comes in here, they might not know exactly what they do, right? So you can click this documentation within the code lens at the top of each block. It'll generate documentation for you. Here we go. Now, let's say this isn't exactly what you want, right? Remove, the documentation from the top and add it to the right of each line of code. So what it will do is remove that documentation from the top, and it's going to add each line how I want it. So it's pretty cool. You can use the refine to when you're working with inline or the command palette here, you're working with the code lens. You can ask Tabnine to refine your answer, or its answer if it's not up to your expectation or liking, or you want to make some changes, right? And this doesn't work with just, of course, it's not just tests. You can generate documentation for one block of code. You can generate documentation for multiple blocks. Heck, you can do it for entire files. Excuse me. There we go. Is bound to lose one word here. Okay, so that's creating documentation. Again, you can do it from the code lens, but you can also go here and just write doc strings for code. So please select the block of code that you want to write documents for. Let's do this big guy. Click continue, and it'll process our request. Adding it here within chat. Again, you'll notice that this is probably, while still being in flow, the most in flow is going to be your command palette or your code lens, inline actions, those sorts of form factors. But you'll see here it's for big file documentation generation. It's the same rules that apply, right? It's just clicking apply, and you're all good. And documentation was added above each block, which is exactly what we want. So the last step here, when we're working within the IDE, is going to be maintaining. And we talked a little bit about this before, but I'm just going to quickly touch on it again. When it comes to your work as a developer is never done. Let's be honest. You're always going to be asked to improve and maintain. And Tabnine can be a really, really, really good source of ideas for that, right? So whether it's generating, coming up with security improvements or user experience, or trying to simplify architecture, or what have you, Tabnine can be a really, really good source of that, right? And you can simply do it by asking Tabnine, give me 10 ways to improve the password generator in Checker. You can also get more specific, right? You can refine this if you want. Oh, I just want to focus on security, or I just want to focus on architecture. But again, this is just a really, really good way to keep continuously improving and developing your application, and then it'll follow the same flow, right? Where we would ask this for to create, descriptions, acceptance criteria. We'd plug this into Jira, and then we'd rinse and repeat with the same flow we just went through, adding new code, testing to make sure it works, and then generating documentation.
Do you want to show some of the custom commands?
I would love to.
Let's do it.
So let's start from the top here. We'll go fun to maybe not so much fun. CodeBard's a cool one. Maybe not. We'll skip the CodeBard. CodeBard for the sake of this, I'll just quickly show it. It'll turn all of my documentation into haikus, riddles, poems, that kind of stuff. Again, not maybe best practice, but in the sense of having fun while you're developing and making it personalized to me, this is one of my favorites. But let's talk about maybe something that is a little more applicable, right? So let's look at security recs. This is actually a good one. So I am going to highlight my code. I'm going to do security recs, for example. And what I've created this custom command to do, because I have, let's say I had my security team's very nice here, but let's say they were really on my butt, and I was trying to, I'm trying to develop code fast, but I also want to do it safely and in a manner that's not going to, burn the whole place down. What I did here was have a custom command that's going to read through my code and identify any potential security vulnerabilities and talk about sort of what they are and how to mitigate that risk in honestly how someone could exploit that, right? Because I think that's also helpful for me gaining a full understanding of the security side of the house, right? So for me, this is okay. Insecure random number generator is the first one. I know this is a no-no, but you shouldn't be using math.random. That's something that can be easily exploitable by a bad actor or an attacker. So it'll tell me why, and it'll give me that refactored code. And that's something I can, again, let's just, for the sake of this, I'll be on the test file. I'm going to click apply. It's now added this within here. Let me find that. Yes, there we go. And now I will have to do some sort of refactoring here and fixing, but it is that idea of these quick custom commands, right? Let me just do this. Another cool one that I can show here is, teach me more. So I am, let's say I'm not super well versed on JUnit testing. For better or for worse, some people don't care about testing. Not saying that I'm one of them, but I might not have the most experience, right? So what I can do is, let me do a new conversation. Let me do, where is educate?
Teach me more.
Teach me more. Yeah, sorry.
There you go.
So many of these custom commands I've lost track of them. So teach me more is another cool one. And this is also, it's really important that these are things that I've found really useful to me, right? So something that I've prompted often. I don't want to have to keep retyping it every time because I use them on a daily basis. So that's really where these custom commands come in handy for me. Another one I used is sort of this teach me more. So it's going to give me documentation and tutorials and other information to, based on the code or dependencies or what I'm doing within my project, right? So we're doing it's all Java based, right? But OWASP is going to tell me more about password security guidelines. I can learn about cryptography, unit testing with Java, using JUnit, better design patterns, because it knows that's something that is important to me. But yeah, all of these custom commands can be added here and also sort of be stacked to help, right? Comparing the OWASP top 10, give me, 5 security recommendations to help improve this application. And that can just be a nice way to help you stay on top of things, especially in a world like this that's rapidly changing. A 0 day you could have the same, software for years, and then a new 0 day is found, right? And having something like this that, a custom command, for example, that can look for that stuff can be very, very helpful.
Yeah, and then let's move on to the code review agent. Before we get there, today the code review agent's the only one that works outside the IDE directly in the pull request, and that is where it's pulling all the training data we gave it from your organization. So there's 2 ways to train the code review agent. Of course, it comes out the box already with hundreds of rules that follow standards and guidelines for code privacy, code security, compliance, and performance for each language that we support. But it's completely configured to your organization's unique coding standards and policies. And there's 2 ways to train that. The first is you can either just give us a natural language document with your rules written out if you're a mature engineering organization and you have that built. If you don't have that, we can just talk to your engineers and build that with you. If you don't want to do that either, you can just point us towards a golden repo, if you will, that you believe contains the best examples of code at your organization. And then we'll use Tabnine to extract a rule set for you. From there, we'll enhance the rules with IDE language, description, library categories, and good and bad coding examples. Then we'll also assign a severity rating to each rule as well. That will kind of indicate how the priority level of the violation here. And then some other interesting things you could do is you can enable them by different user IDs, user emails, or organization IDs. So if you wanted to create custom rule sets for code review by team, this is a great way to do that. And of course, this is all completely editable and configurable. So you can add on rules on the fly as you progress and get more mature. Yeah, that's how you do it in the interface. So why don't we hop on over to the actual PR?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, go ahead. Do you want to take this one? I can.
no, go for it.
Yeah. So I'll just quickly gloss over. This is a PR. So when a developer is in, when it comes to the developer flow and a developer makes a PR and MR, Tabnine will review the code in the PR MR against your rule set and flag any deviations, offer suggestions to fix the code. So if we look at, for example, this PR, you can see that here is the code in question, here is the rule that it's been violating, and here's the suggested revision. Also, of course, you can make comments, ask questions around this as well. But through each of these, it'll give, it'll show the code in question and provide that information on how to fix. And this is really important because sometimes, things that folks might often not think about, it can slip through the cracks, right? Something like this, which is a hard coding sensitive information, that is a big no-no. We do not want that in production code. Being able to find this, at this level here is incredibly valuable. It also then, sort of the last piece of this PR report is sort of a table of summary, right? So we'll go over critical issues, errors, warnings, and suggestions, sort of giving you a nice high-level overview of what went on within this PR.
Great. So that is it for the demo portion of this. And
Cool.
something important to note is that the code review agent works in the PR today, but the long-term vision for this is to actually apply the rules and have it interact directly in the IDE. So catch these issues before they even get submitted to the pull request. And I think as you develop your rule set and as we internally add on more and more default rules to give you right out the box, what this is really going to solve for is, I don't know if you've seen over the last second half of this year, but there's been a lot of activity and conversation in the space, especially from CISOs and security teams around concerns with the security of AI generated code. And primarily the studies have been on GitHub Copilot, but there's been some other third-party studies that have been published looking at the different LLMs. And they found two things that are kind of important for you to know. One is that junior developers were more likely to just assume that code generated by an AI was secure and safe. And then two, that when you're using an AI or an LLM without a AI coding assistant, so just using like ChatGPT in a window or something, because it's been completely trained on open source and scrapable code, that code itself that it's spitting out might not actually be very secure. So having some assistance here as you're accelerating your SDLC to also improve code quality and security is super important. And that's one of the reasons we built this feature. So with this, you're going to ensure that, well, first of all, with Tabnine's personalization, the code it creates isn't going to create technical debt to begin with because it's relevant and fits into your project and code base and your organization. The second thing is that the code that it creates is going to be highly secure as you develop your rule sets and implement them, and as we develop more and more rule sets as well. So this kind of like a complete fix for code quality, code security, and coding speed all in one. So when you choose Tabnine, you're going to find that you're not going to need to buy additional AIs for software development. It's going to be a one-stop shop for you that does everything that you need. And broadly, when you think about the space and as you're selecting an AI code assistant, the thing I recommend you look for is think about who has delivered the most innovation fastest in the market and who you're going to bet on to continue delivering at that rate and level of quality. And historically, we're the safest bet in the market on that front. We're the first to create an AI code assistant, first to do local context awareness, code-based connection, Jira agents, all the other agents we showed you. Now we're the first to do code review that's fully customized to your company as well. So I think if you're looking for a vendor today, Tabnine is definitely something you should think about checking out. So, Chris, why don't we pop on over to the admin panel view and just round this out with some other stuff that we show you.
Yeah. So when you pop into the admin panel, you'll see starting at the top, we'll have some high-level analytics for administrators, right? You'll be able to see registered users, how your account's being utilized. You can set the time frame. In this case, I have mine to the last 12 weeks. But you can see and monitor on a week-to-week basis. It also gets more granular as you go down, right? So you can see types of interactions, which models and total interactions per model, right? You can really have more transparency on what your team's doing. You can even get further down into it and actually go on a user-to-user basis. And you can see what someone's actual automation factor is, how many accepted completions, useful chat interactions, so on and so forth. Team management, just additional areas for you to monitor and keep track of your team members. Not really important for the demo, but what is important is this model section, right? So as an administrator, you have complete control over which models are provided or available to your organization. To be able to toggle these is incredibly simple. It is just, whoops, excuse me. I might not be an administrator. It's as simple as just toggling this button here, and that will make it immediately available to all of the users on your team. Additionally, within Workspace, this is where you can enable Tabnine context, right? So this is what we talked about, being able to allow Tabnine to process and analyze content from your users' machines on Tabnine servers, right? But it's all encrypted during transit, right? So no specific content is retained or used by Tabnine.
Right. With the important caveat on that point there, when Chris mentioned Tabnine servers, that really only applies to our SaaS deployment. If you're VPC or on-prem, there is nothing that leaves your infrastructure, and it would run fully self-contained. So there's no server call happening on those to Tabnine.
And then for the Git repositories, this is where you connect them again, simple as an SSH key. It takes a couple minutes. And again, this is where you can enable your Jira connection. But that is it as far as Tabnine product and Tabnine demo, right? We've gone over the overview of each of the agents, right? From the code lens to the command palette, or the factors, right? Working with the Tabnine chat. And then work through each stage of the SDLC, right? From creating to fixing, to onboarding, to maintaining, documentation, and so on and so forth, and everything good in between. So let's wrap things up here. If there's any questions anyone has, feel free to ask away.
Yeah, and while you guys are thinking about those, if you have them, Tabnine's really easy to get started with. So if you want to try out Tabnine with your team, just come on over to our website, and you'll see one of our SDRs pop up in the chat bubble. Book some time with them, and the pricing for Tabnine is as follows. So our Tabnine Enterprise solution is what we've demoed today. That costs $39 per user per month. There's 3 ways to deploy again. With our SaaS deployment, you can go as small as, I believe, 10 users there. For on-prem deployments, we do require a 100-user seat minimum in the contract to roll out with that. However, we do run POCs with our enterprise customers. So if you want to try before you buy, we totally support that. Just again, come over to our website, come talk to one of our SDRs, and we'll get you guys rolling with the evaluation at Tabnine, get it installed in your space, give it to your developers, and then we'll guide you through the entire process with training. We have customer support and success teams, as well as solutions engineering based out of the United States, North America, and Europe broadly. So whatever time zone you're in, we've got coverage and support for you there. We really make it really easy for us to work with us. And we've got a lot of experience working with really highly privacy conscious and regulatory centric industries and companies. So we're well versed in getting through legal review, as well as any things your security team wants to throw our way. So we can move through that process as fast as your team is willing to go. And we're here to support you every step of the way. So if you aren't quite yet interested in doing Tabnine Enterprise and doing a POC, what you can also do is just go to our website and install and try out either our Tabnine free plan, which is free forever. That plan won't have all of the agents that I've mentioned, and you'll also run into some rate limits there. But the other alternative to try is our Tabnine Dev plan, which is $9 per user, single seat only, of course. And that comes with a 30-day free trial. So you can take some of these features out for a spin yourself there as well. But if you're really a mature engineering organization and you want to give this a full spin or test drive, best way to do that is just to reach out to us and we'll set up a POC with you. And that is pretty much it for getting started with Tabnine. If you've got questions around running this on-prem and need to figure out what sort of GPU requirements you'd need for your models, we can guide you through that as well. So really any questions you have, feel free to drop them in.
Absolutely. And if you don't, let's say you can't think of one right now, you can always find Amaya or myself on LinkedIn and shoot us a message. We're happy to chat as well.
Alrighty, we'll give it another minute here for questions.
Not all at once, please.
So we do these Tabnine office hours every Wednesday. You can register for them on our website, tabnine.com/tabnine-office-hours. We have one more session this year that'll happen next week at 10:30 a.m. PT time. You can, of course, also register for these from any of our social media channels. So the stream it happens on YouTube, it happens on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on Twitter as well. So to get notified about those, just follow our social media accounts and you'll see a post from us. Just sign up from the social media channel of your choice and join in on the fun.
Sweet. Well, if there's no questions, shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning, and hope you guys all have a great day. And we'll see you guys next week on Tabnine Office Hours.
Yep. Cheers.